this is my biggest headline from CinemaCon. Lord of the Rings continues to expand, and this is going to be the theatrical version that is acting as kind of a bridge between The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring, even though what takes place during this movie is in like technically in the book, The Fellowship of the Ring. The Hunt for Gollum, directed by Andy Serkis. We had huge news for this movie. And like it's not footage. Even though there was footage shown, it was more of the cast announcement that made the rounds on the internet that I think is must talk on this podcast, and it's juicy for us. So it's a story of people that are returning to Lord of the Rings. It's newcomers to Lord of the Rings. It's replacement castings. It had a little bit of everything. To me, this is the number one where Lord of the Rings continues to expand. And I think in my mind, if I was to make a headline about it, they try to do what Star Wars really was unsuccessful at, when it went over to Disney, and then they created movies within the Skywalker saga. Now you have Lord of the Rings trying to make movies within the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy. Will it be successful? Are they trying to kind of beat that? And I think I'm hopeful for this. I'm excited for it, especially with I know a lot of people were very, critical of the announcement of the Colbert sequel. Well, once again, that's happening within this lineage of movies between the 3 Hobbits and the 3 Lord of the Rings. I got so excited. I watched the Hobbit trilogy before this podcast, dude. I thought this was the biggest story.
So, this is my number 2. So it's you could argue it's number 1 because it's new, right? Because Dune Part 3 and Odyssey wasn't new. Like you just saw the footage and you heard about it, and then the response was just so loud. I had to put that at 1 because it's everything we expected and maybe even more. But this is probably the biggest news out of CinemaCon, right? You have Jamie Dornan return. Or sorry, not Jamie return. Jamie Dornan becoming Strider. You have Leo Woodall, whatever, who was also in talks or rumored to be Aragorn or Strider, but he's going to be Halvard, right? And then you have Ali Pace return. That's what I meant to say. And you said, "Oh, will Hunt for Gollum be successful?" That was my headline. Will Hunt for Gollum work, right? Or will this be Jamie Dornan's return to relevancy? And I am on the opposite side of this than you. I unfortunately think that this casting is not going to work. I think this reminds me of if they tried.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be as good as Viggo Mortensen.
I understand. I understand that. And of course, you would never say that, or else we wouldn't have this podcast.
Dude, I'm not Viggo as Aragorn is a legendary casting.
It's very similar to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And whenever we've been talking about, Taron Egerton or all these people replacing him as Wolverine for 6-7 years. But Hugh Jackman's still Wolverine. They redid the character so he could still be in the movies, dude. And there's a reason for that. You can't really recast Wolverine. And similar to Aragorn, I think he just falls in that same bucket. And Jamie Dornan, dude, I'm sorry. This guy is irrelevant. He is. And I don't think he's a good actor. And for me, if you're trying to a casting that was perfect in Viggo Mortensen, if you're going to recast that, right, at least have a good actor there, either a nobody or so then you're like, I can look at this guy as Aragorn, right, or whatever character, right? You cast a nobody for that, right? And then you think you don't know that guy's name, so you're not thinking, this is Jamie Dornan. You're thinking, this is Aragorn. You don't do that. You go for a star, right? A name a person that you know. So if you do that, you have to be 100% certain this guy is a great actor. This guy's never been in a good movie. Belfast is probably his best movie, and he was arguably the worst actor in that movie. So I think this is so questionable. I really think it's a problem. I was texting. The reason why I texted Big Mike was about this. And he is actually not high on it. He says mixed feelings.
He's our Lord of the Rings correspondent, by the way, listeners.
Yes, sorry. I should say that. So he said mixed feelings. He says he's a decent enough actor, but uphill battle with such an iconic role. And then he saw a side-by-side with Viggo Mortensen and said, yeah, he could see it. And he's just very happy that Leo Woodall is not playing Aragorn.
I agree with Mike. I'm giving Jamie Dornan hope. Leo Woodall would have been a disaster. when you look at Leo Woodall, you don't look at a hyper masculine actor. This is, I think, the perfect, comparison is like, oh my God, it's like asking someone to play Wolverine after Hugh Jackman. Thing about Aragorn, though, it's only for 3 movies. You're like, Hugh Jackman's played this guy for 26 years in Wolverine, you know? So Leo Woodall, he's the guy who's like bright blue eyes, innocent type of face. He would have been a terrible casting for Aragorn because he is just the man. He's masculine, like his faults are just like the failures he's had, like on the battlefield. Like he's a dude's dude. And so Leo Woodall wouldn't have been good. But then you're casting the guy who was in 50 Shades of Grey. And I'm like, I can kind of like see where you're going with this, as long as he could pull off the bearded, masculine, strong man type of thing, which I think Jamie Dornan is just a way better casting than what was rumored with Leo Woodall, And I wonder if there was a course correction along the way, because Leo Woodall was rumored for a long time to be playing Aragorn, and I wonder if like the backlash, they were like, we need to get a manlier actor, honestly, to play this role. It is an uphill battle, but I also thought about the MCU when I saw this, because it reminded me of like the Doomsday chairs, where it's like, okay, of course Gandalf's coming back, of course Andy Serkis is coming back, but then you see like Lee Pace, you're like, oh, we're getting like the Hobbit like mixed up in here, and I thought he had a very interesting character in the Hobbit. I think I know how he's going to be implemented in this movie. Like even Elijah Wood, he's coming back. And then you get, oh, it's a recast. It's Jamie Dornan. It felt like the chairs being revealed a little bit in Doomsday. And you're like, oh, some of these are like expected and it's a waste of time. The other ones, I'm like, that shit could be interesting. Jamie Dornan's an interesting one, So I agree. Uphill battle, but you can't have Vigo come back. It's taking place at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, and it's bridging the Hobbit and the trilogy. Like you had no choice.
Yeah. Let me say something else that Mike said that I agree with, which is also away from the actual Dornan story or Woodall's story here, and it's the actual story where I said, oh, like, so what do you think the story is going to be? Is it going to be Strider and Halvar like hunting down Gollum, and then Gandalf and Frodo just going to be going around? Like, what's the story? And Mike was like, well, it's one paragraph in the footnotes of the books. Yeah. So it's really an afterthought in the books. And
it's in the Fellowship of the Ring. Like this scene that where Aragorn is describing what happened.
I'm just going off our Tolkien correspondent, what he said to me. And then he said, lots of creative liberties will have to be taken. Mm-hmm. And shows like Rings of Power demonstrate Hollywood writers aren't up to snuff. Serkis also has a bad track record as a director, which is nerve-wracking. I'm already prepping for him to bitch the meaning of Animal Farm since it's the kids' movies now. But point is, I think because they're not going to have a lot of direction, because there's no, it's like kind of what we talk about Game of Thrones season 8. There's nothing on the books. It's literally going to be them kind of coming up with this. I am actually nervous with this project. And so the fact that there was a teaser shown at this, right? Teaser shown at CinemaCon, and we didn't hear anything about it.
We didn't get like descriptions like we heard about Clayface, reactions and emotion from Clayface.
For Lord of the Rings, we don't hear anything about like what the teaser was showing us.
I wonder if the teaser was what we got on the internet, which was just the castings. I wonder if it was that video, and the castings is pretty much the news. That's what I was kind of thinking of. And then the story wise, what happened in the Fellowship of the Ring, the council at Elrond with, all the iconic characters coming together and like backing like the hobbits and then committing to go to Mordor. I think at that council, the council at Elrond, Aragorn is describing the events that are happening in this movie. And it is like a paragraph. I went on Reddit. I got deep into the weeds. I did some research here, and I'm into it now because I rewatched the Hobbit movies. Still not great, but still have some good to them. But it's Aragorn is sent by Gandalf to go find Gollum. And he's going to find Gollum to find out more information about the ring, the One Ring. And then it's Aragorn talking about his interaction with Gollum. Gollum ends up being imprisoned inside of an elvish, inside the elvish kingdom for trespassing. And that's where I think Lee Pace says Thranduil will come in. He is the toughest name to pronounce in all of like Lord of the Rings, but so bear with me. So I think it's literally only a few paragraphs, but it reminds me of what they're doing with Stephen Colbert's, movie, where it's only 3 chapters of the Fellowship of the Ring. And this is where I'm thinking Lord of the Rings is going in on this part of, Tolkien's world between The Hobbit and the three Lord of the Rings movies. But Big Mike, our Lord of the Rings correspondent, has said there's so much other stories we can explore, centuries either before or after. But they're choosing to tell two, not one, but two stories that are vaguely detailed, not vaguely, but this one specifically vaguely in the Fellowship of the Ring book. Could we be exploring something different? But you have to have the cast come back. You have to have like the recasting of the character. You got to have the familiarity, with the audience, that it seems like they're not willing to take the risk of going outside of this, timeline, which is like, I feel like what Star Wars was suffering from. They just didn't have the confidence to go outside the timeline. I feel like I had that with Lord of the Rings now, that feeling.
Yeah, I guess I have that feeling too. I just
what Rings of Power, you could say, was beforehand and things like that,
exactly,
but
exactly.
like I'm thinking movies.
I'm getting a little like in The Hobbit, the backlash after the Hobbit trilogy. I am nervous for this officially now. I wasn't as much until CinemaCon, and for me, that's as not a Tolkien head. I like Lord of the Rings a lot. I think the Lord of the Rings arguably the best trilogy of all time, probably the best trilogy of all time. Dune 3, like Dune's coming for that, but this is, again, I think we're getting to the point where we've had so much Lord of the Ring content now with The Hobbit, with the Rings of Power, that have just not met expectations where we're hearing them. I'm just losing confidence and trust in this IP as we go on. And I think I'm at like the border. I'm at like the balance, the scales, and I'm in the middle. And I'm like, which side is this going to go? And I'm feeling like we're going down.
It's hard to tell because we've never had we had the prequel movies, and if you want to go Star Wars analogy, keeping up with it, you had the original three that are hailed as cinematic masterpieces, especially Lord of the Rings, like all three movies through and through, like shot at the same time, like all the Oscars, the Return of the King run at the Oscars, all of that stuff that's even higher in terms of like prestige than Star Wars. And then you have The Hobbit, and The Hobbit is a clear step down. I was thinking that the entire time I was watching it. This is such a step down from Lord of the Rings. But like Peter Jackson directed the Hobbit movies.
Yep.
Like George Lucas didn't direct the first three Star Wars. He was producing and everything, but he directed the prequel movies. And I was just thinking, like, Peter Jackson directing does not guarantee success for Lord of the Rings. Like, I think a lot of people would say, like, oh, Peter Jackson's not directing The Hunt for Gollum. We can't trust it. Andy Serkis, I get Big Mike's trepidation, but do you want Peter Jackson coming off The Hobbit? In The Hobbit, I watched that movie. The look of that movie, it is a tragedy. Like that movie looks the way it does after the practicality of the Lord of the Rings trilogy that came out in 01, 02, 03, and movies that come out in 12, 13, 14 look as bad as they do. So I'm like, visually, who are you gonna have? The guy who can kind of like work on the practicality, but also is the master of motion capture. Andy Serkis. Who is this movie mostly focusing on? Gollum. His character, one of the best motion capture performers of all time, one of the best motion captured characters that have ever existed on the big screen. I was watching An Unexpected Journey 2 days ago. The scene with Gollum's unbelievable. Like when him and Bilbo are having the riddles back and forth.
That's a good scene.
It is so good. Like there are some parts of I watched The Hobbit and I'm like, they kind of do what Marvel does, a little bit in The Hobbit. Where it's like, yeah, this character, do we need him for this much in the story? No, but also if you insert him here, it's going to be freaking amazing. It reminds me of, Gollum in that scene. You have the Saruman council with Elrond and Galadriel, like everyone like at that thing. It's like the nerd porn type of moments. You have the sequel, not Battle of Five Armies. What's the second one? Desolation of
Smog. Yeah.
And then you have like Legolas like jumping on barrels and shooting arrows. It's like, holy shit. Like it felt like fan service a little bit when I was watching those movies. I think this could be like, you're getting a little bit of fan service, but also like we can actually have something come together that looks amazing, high quality. That's not a little bit of slop that, The Hobbit felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I want to say yes, but unfortunately I just feel like the way that big budgets are going now, them trying to save money here and there, it's just nothing's going to be practical in this movie again. I feel like it's going to be visually inept. It's just like that
with Andy Serkis.
Unfortunately, besides the Gollum factors, right? I feel like everything else, it's going to be the same. I feel like you need to protect, because again, it's all about the P&L, bottom line. I'm trying to make dollars and cents here, Doc. And I feel like the studio is not going to back them. And this wasn't shot in New Zealand. Like
Where was
it's
it shot?
officially right. This is on lots. It's the same thing as The Hobbit. This is
Shit. Then
I'm pretty sure this is the same.
If
So,
they're
like,
not in New Zealand, cancel it.
I'm
Cancel
just
it.
saying, man. Like,
Write it off. Coyote versus Acme. This stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I unfortunately think this is gonna be like The Hobbit, if not worse.
But I feel like this movie's a little cocky because the tagline that went with the castings at CinemaCon, it was, quote, "This is a tale that must never be told," end quote.
I like that.
That's meta. You know, that is meta. Like, you're saying we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't meddle with the trilogy. We shouldn't bring back characters. We shouldn't recast. You know what? We're doing it, and it's going to be awesome. That's what that tagline told me. No?
Yeah, I didn't think about that way. But that's also very meta. You're right. I kind of viewed it as like, damn, like that's a pretty good tagline. That's good promo.
I think it's going to be the movie. I think it's been described as it's going to be a lot from Gollum's perspective, you know. And to me, like, I feel like a dose of Gollum is great. A whole movie on him could be interesting, and I don't know if that could work. You know, that's why you need like a massive cast, I think, around him, because if you have too much Gollum, like that can get pretty annoying to watch. You know, that could be like you can't watch a schizophrenic Andy Serkis for 90 straight minutes.
Cannot.